Hello, I'm Marianna Sheldrake from Happy Glastonbury, and as you're probably aware by now, I'm very passionate about crystals. The one thing that people ask me the most times, the question that is on most people's minds when they're looking at crystals or when they first come across crystals is, it's all very well knowing about their energy and what the write-ups say or what you're telling me about the crystals, but what do I actually do with them? Well, I've been working with crystals with my daughters now since the early 80s. And for me, I've picked up lots and lots of little quirky bits of information and some pieces that have worked really, really well. So that is what I'm going to share with you on this course. First, I'd like to show you some different types of selenite, because this is the first piece of our course, working with selenite to heal the healer. Mostly because it's the first crystal that I came across that really worked well for me, and it was one that a lot of healers were talking about back in the 80s. So when you first come across selenite, you will find huge pieces like this, for example, and when it arrives in our business, the first thing we have to do is to make it a size that people can work with. It's, I think, very important when you're working with selenite that at some point along your journey with selenite that you begin to actually work with it yourself. So what we do is we take the huge piece like this and we literally cut it through. It sounds a bit dramatic, I know, but it's the only way to get into the crystal, to make it a piece that we can work with. That is far too big to work with for most people, obviously. And so we break it down into smaller pieces, and you'll find that as you literally, I very often use a knife, and I will literally go through the crystal and I will find the right cleavage here and cut through, hammer it through, and then as it breaks down, it splinters. Usually I'm looking for a piece about this size to make a wand or something suitable for working with selenite, particularly for healing. Now, I think when I first started working with selenite, I was really curious to find out why it grew like this, because I just found it so adorable and so gentle. And I was told that under the deserts in Morocco, what happened, probably at the time of the Great Flood, a lot of sedimentary minerals formed in pockets under the desert floor. And as the water receded, what was left was this sort of foamy substance of minerals and mixtures of sand and other things, which as they, through obviously thousands of years, solidified and hardened, they formed selenite into these beautiful strands here. Now, if you've listened to the meditation and you're following our course, you'll realise that I've been talking about selenite can change just like we can change, and that's one of the qualities of selenite. It does allow us this wonderful ability to reflect back an energy to us that goes, well, okay, you know, we may have taken a wrong path, or our health might not be the best it could be, but we can work with that and we can make a change. And selenite does that. It just blends with that energy, with our energy, within our DNA strand, within our molecular structure, and it goes, come on, you know, we can sort this out, and it just makes you feel confident about working and being part of the process of healing. This would have grown probably quite straight. Most selenite grows in these sort of fissures as the sedimentary rock solidifies. And this we've had for some time because I use it for my healing courses, and it's actually, if you look at it, got a sort of a bending. If I can hold it, you'll see that it's not quite straight anymore. It's got this curve. I don't know if we can get that to camera, but there's a beautiful curve on it. And do you know, if you left that in the sunshine, or you left it outside for a while, because you have to be very careful with water with selenite, it would change enormously. It could erode down one side and become more of a curve, or it could erode completely. So it does change. It changes with heat and it changes with water. And the colour here, because there's some colour coming through from the sand here, you've got this sort of rose effect, and you do get a beautiful rose selenite, which we use in healing as well. And you often see it made into the little lamps, you know, the candle holders. So let me just show you quickly a few other pieces. This is how they've cut into it, and you see sometimes these as big pieces, you'll see huge pieces this size or bigger, where they've cut into it, and so then they've allowed this what they call cathedral look, which they sand the bottom, and you end up with these beautiful cathedrals, which they'll put on points of a grid. So that's quite handy to have. And sometimes you see it cut through and polished, really smooth. That's really handy to use for placing on the forehead or parts of the body, particularly the forehead when you're laying down, when you're sort of trying to find, to de-stress the mind and trying to find that space to sleep, to allow the mind to stop talking. And of course you can buy tumbled pieces like these. And one of the rarest forms of selenite would then be this one, which is from Peru, and it's golden selenite. I only came across this, or pieces of this, I'd heard about it, but I hadn't come across pieces of it until about 8 years ago, and we had a geologist friend of mine brought some back from Peru and said, what do you think of this? What's the healing properties? What do you feel? And I said, oh my goodness, it's obviously at some point been in the water below sea level, because the base of it here is completely salt, so you can't clean this, you can't put this in water or anything like that. But it forms in these beautiful, like butterfly wings, and it has the gentlest of energy. I've only got one personal piece in my collection, and this piece, and it literally is very, very hard to get and can be quite expensive. But that is a really beautiful, angelic energy with this one. What I'd like to do now, because I think it's important that I show you this, because people are frightened to work with it, so you will see I'm quite rough when I'm working with selenite. But I'm going to just bring up some water here and show you now how you can make your selenite wand. Right, so the first thing you're going to need is your piece of rough selenite. So choose a piece that's more, the squarer to start with it is, probably the easiest you will find to work with it. So out of the pieces I've got here, I'm going to choose this piece for example. And as you can see, it's quite rough, there's grooves and there's pieces there, and it's not very clear. And what I do is I pop my little thin gloves on, because I don't want to ruin my hands. And I've got some water here. Don't be afraid of water. The thing about selenite is don't leave it in the water, don't leave it there too long. And I pop my piece in that I'm going to make into my wand, and this is just a wire wool pad. It helps if it's got the sort of soap with it, because it gives you something to work with. And what I'm doing and I'm rubbing hard here, what I'm doing is I'm compressing the crystal, the selenite crystal here. And the more you do this, the more you will push the molecules together, and the smoother and glassier it will become. So what I would do if I was going to make this into a wand or prepare this for the next stage of our healing process, I would take my little chisel or my knife, what I normally use, and as I'm working I would just literally flick down and knock off any bits that I don't like. I don't mind if it's a little bit natural looking, I just want it really smooth. But I know a lot of people, when they're working selenite, they will knock all these pieces off and they will literally work down, because look, it's soft. You just scrape that off, and you can do this, so don't be afraid of doing this to get the smooth edge, because I don't want to have a rough edge or a sharp edge. So use an old knife and just scrape down, and then use your pad and you make it as smooth as you'd like it to be. I like it smooth. I'm not worried if it still looks natural, but I want it to look smooth, so when I hold it and I stroke it, I can feel the compressed molecules, I can feel the beauty of the mineral that I'm working with. And I think part of the process, part of the healing process, is for you to do this yourself, because you're sort of bonding with your own healing process, and as you're doing that and trying to empty the mind of shopping and children and all the other things that play in our mind during the day, it allows you to sort of, what you might start off with, oh, I must get this right, to, oh, how beautiful this is, it's feeling really smooth. And so work with it until you feel you've got it really sort of as transparent and as beautiful as you want it. And then, this isn't quite ready yet, but to speed up the process for you, because I could be here for a little while, I would just dry this off. and I'll show you now to camera, I'll get a close-up shot in a second, the difference between a piece that you've worked with here and where we would have started from. See how rough and how beautiful this is. And this is really smooth, whereas this, you'd be careful that you didn't get little fragments in your skin. Here it's nice and smooth, so you could hold it and you can work with it. Now, if you wanted to, if you was to buy, for example, a piece like this, you would cut that into two, because that's too big. This is the sort of size you're looking for. And then you could cut it through again and break it, and you'd end up with lots of small pieces. And this is really handy when you move on to the next process of making a selenite grid. And for that you will need one of these pieces here, and ideally some smaller pieces, so make some smaller ones, or some tumbled pieces to continue your healing journey. I hope you found that of interest, and I hope you do give this a go, because for me it was a big part of my early learning with crystals, and it's baby steps, but it's a big part of learning to heal the healer and heal yourself first. Thank you.